Been a while, but we're back. The Unofficial Pre Fight Show is here. This coming up weekend, we have Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. Let's go. In the main event this weekend, we have two top 5 featherweights facing off when Brian Ortega takes on Yair Rodriguez. Apparently, if Rodriguez wins this fight, he gets a mandatory title shot, from what I've heard anyway. And if Brian Ortega wins, he gets one step closer to potentially getting that rematch with the current champ, Volkanovski. Very close fight here. I know oddmakers have Brian Ortega as a slight favorite. I see Ortega having the obvious grappling and jiu-jitsu advantage. I also see Ortega having the boxing advantage. The path to victory for Ortega in this fight is going to be to close the distance. If he's going to stay on the feet, he's got to fight at boxing range, and he's got to consistently pursue that clinch and takedown. He needs to get Yair Rodriguez's back up against the cage and keep him there to minimize the movement of Yair Rodriguez. If Brian Ortega can utilize his pummeling, his clinch work, secure some takedowns, could be a long night for Yair Rodriguez, but that's going to be much easier said than done. And it's a big what if in that I feel like Yair Rodriguez has really underrated takedown defense, and we all know Brian Ortega doesn't have the best wrestling. So I think it's going to be tough for Ortega to execute that game plan. Looking at Yair Rodriguez's path to victory. Now, although I did say Brian Ortega, I feel has the better boxing, I think the overall better striker is Yair Rodriguez. Rodriguez has some of the best kicks at featherweight, and he's, in my opinion, one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC. The path to victory for Yair Rodriguez is going to be to fight at a distance and utilize those kicks in that range that he has. He's going to have to use his footwork to circle out, not go straight backwards, to avoid that takedown and that clinch work of Brian Ortega. If Rodriguez can mix up his strikes, use his punches, kicks, elbows, knees, to keep Brian Ortega guessing, to keep Brian Ortega on the defense, and just don't let Ortega get any sort of a rhythm or get settled in the fight, I can see him having a lot of success in pulling off the upset victory. Although, all that being said, if I have to pick somebody on this one, it's going to be Brian Ortega. I do think his grappling and superior jiu-jitsu is going to play a factor in this bout. And if he can score some takedowns, I could see him getting a potential submission. I can also see him taking the back from the clinch, or maybe slapping on a choke from his clinch, as well as he's known to do. But this is by no means a lock. It's going to be a very close fight. Going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But Brian Ortega is the pick on this one. Next up, we have two welterweights facing off when the Leech, Jingliang Li, takes on Muslim Sulekov. Two guys looking to stay relevant in the welterweight division. The Leech is looking to get back in the win column after getting blasted by Chimaev last year. And Muslim Sulekov is looking to make it 6 wins in a row with a victory on Saturday. Now, looking at this bout, I would give Muslim Sulekov the advantages just about everywhere. You know, I think overall he's a better striker. I think he's a better grappler. And I just think he's a better MMA fighter in general. All that being said, I would give Jingliang Li the advantage when it comes to power. The guy has the ability to knock out just about any welterweight on the planet. I just don't see that happening on Saturday, especially given the fact that Muslim has never been knocked out in his professional MMA career. So we're going to go with Muslim Sulekov in this fight. Although I did notice a couple red flags here, just reviewing some of the statistics on these fighters. One is the fact that Muslim Sulekov is 38 years old. I got to think his best days are behind him, especially at welterweight. It's pretty rare that a 38-year-old is going to be in their prime. Another thing I noticed is he hasn't been very active over the years. He's fought twice in the last 2 years. And in my opinion, inactivity for any fighter is never a good thing. Now, I don't know if this inactivity is due to injury, due to visa issues, but just a couple things to be aware of heading into this fight on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if Jingliang Li got the upset victory, but I got to go with Muslim on this fight. In the next fight we're going to review, we have two top 15 flyweights facing off when Matt Schmell takes on Mudargi. Matt Schmell, coming off of 2 consecutive losses here, kind of has his back up against the wall in a must-win situation. And Mudargi is trying to make it 4 wins in a row in the UFC with a victory on Saturday. Now, looking at this bout, I do think Mudargi has the striking advantage. I've noticed in Matt Schmell's fights, he tends to get hit a lot. And against a guy like Mudargi, who has 13 KOs or technical knockouts within his professional career, I just don't think Matt Schmell can afford to do that. It's also important to note that Mudargi is going to come in with a slight reach advantage in this bout, which he may be able to use to his advantage. Now, I do think Matt Schmell does have very underrated grappling. The guy's got 9 pro wins coming by a submission, and interestingly enough, all of Su Mudarji's losses come by a submission. If this fight goes to the ground, could be a huge problem for Mudargi, and I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Schmell got a submission victory in this fight. Oddmakers do have Mudargi as a pretty heavy favorite here. He's coming in as a plus 250, and I think this fight is a lot more competitive than that. That being said, though, I am going to go with Su Mudargi for the victory. I just don't like the fact that Matt Schmell gets hit quite a lot in his fights, and I think Mudargi has a lot of power for a flyweight, and could potentially see him knocking out Matt Schmell. So Su Mudargi is the last bout we're going to review on today's show is a featherweight fight between Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain. 2 really talented fighters who leave it all in the cage. Both of these guys predominantly like to stand and trade, although they're very well rounded, can end a fight on the feet or on the mat. Looking at this fight, a couple things really stood out to me. One is the fact that Shane Burgos has a 6.5-inch reach advantage. I see this fight predominantly staying on the feet, and I think that reach advantage could definitely give Jourdain some problems. The second is the fact that Shane Burgos has fought some of the best guys at featherweight and has been competitive with some of the best fighters in the world. This is a huge step up for Charles Jourdain, and I think it might be a little too much too soon for him at this stage in his career. Because of that, we're going with Shane Burgos for the win. Jourdain is a really talented fighter. He might be a ranked fighter in the UFC at some stage in his career. I just don't think he's ready for a guy like Shane Burgos at this stage. As of right now in their career, I see Shane Burgos as being the better fighter, and I think that 6.5-inch reach advantage is going to play a factor in this fight. So Shane Burgos is the pick. And that is it for this episode of the Unofficial Pre Fight Show. It's nice to be back doing this again, and enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll see you next time.